Hello, Adam Gower here. I build digital marketing systems for real estate professionals so you can find more investors, build your email list, raise more money, and do more and bigger deals. Find out more at GowerCrowd.com. And today, welcome to the GowerCrowd Podcast, syndication in the digital age with my dear friend Yonah Weiss. Oh my goodness, I met Yonah on LinkedIn. And he is a powerhouse on LinkedIn. And Yonah applies a very hands-on, intensive, and interactive strategy to managing his LinkedIn profile, where all I do basically is auto-post and leap in occasionally when somebody tags me or mentions my name or asks me a question. And I'll tell you this, number one, the way that I do it is extremely effective. It works very well and it takes almost none of my time. But it is clear that the way that Yonah does it also, with a much more hands-on approach, is equally as powerful and effective. So somewhere between the two of these poles, the auto-posting and the manual interaction, is probably a sweet spot. Well, today you're in for a treat because Yonah is going to share with you his biggest secrets to how to do it. He is amazing at LinkedIn, without doubt. He doesn't teach how to do it, not yet. You're going to learn it all in today's episode. It really is probably one of the most valuable episodes, one of the most actionable episodes you will listen to for a while. And I also wrote an article about it. So be sure to go to the show notes page for today's episode, where you will find links to Yonah and to the article I wrote based on today's episode. And I've also put links to Yonah's LinkedIn profile, to his website. You'll learn a lot more about him over there at the show notes page. Remember also that if you want to raise more money and do bigger and more deals, then we can help you do that here at GowerCrowd. Just go to GowerCrowd.com and subscribe to the newsletters. We have two, one on the weekends, which is educational, and then one on Wednesdays, which covers the prior week's latest news updates from the world of commercial real estate, crowdfunding and syndication. They are both very, very popular. And just based on the emails that I get, right, from especially the Wednesday newsletter, clearly of high value. So go ahead, check those out at GowerCrowd.com. Okay, now here he is. The moment you've been waiting for. Learn absolute LinkedIn best practices from the one and only Yonah Weiss, who I think I forgot to mention. He is Cost Segregation Expert at Madison SPECS, but I always think of him as first and foremost a LinkedIn expert. I'm not sure if that's such a good thing, but anyway, his day job is as a segregation expert at Madison SPECS. Either way, here he is, Yonah Weiss, to talk about LinkedIn best practices. Yonah, so I get messages and I get notifications on LinkedIn. And on a good day, I might have 10. On a really hot day, I might have 15. But I have joined your 10-day madness. You have a different name for it. I'm going to call it the 10-day ballistic madness. And I am getting at least 60 to 75 in both notifications and messages. And my question to you, and we talked about this last week, was I don't have the time, and yet you are a genius on LinkedIn. And so what I really want to unwrap today with you is all your secrets to LinkedIn and how to engage in LinkedIn without actually spending all your life on it. Unless, of course, you do spend all your life on it. So, so I'm just teeing it up now. Right. Let's start at the beginning. I'm not sure where my question's going, but let's start at the beginning. How did you discover LinkedIn? And what was the process that you discovered was the most effective to generate engagement and business actually online?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today, Adam. It's a pleasure always to speak to you. And this is one of my favorite subjects because it's a big part of my life. And you kind of jokingly, you're someone who's immersed, they're all their time on LinkedIn. It's very difficult to spend that much time doing anything. Okay. But we'll kind of break it down as how this has progressed and where it started and what I'm using it for now, specifically to, generate a tremendous amount of engagement, which leads to a tremendous amount of incoming business. And I think that's really the main goal of social media. Okay. It's really a twofold goal, which is one, creating communities. But that ties in with creating those communities with people, like-minded people who you will be doing business with, because you'd like to do business with those people that you like, know, trust, those, the famous, all those famous things. It started, I'd say, interestingly enough, as a sales job. I was looking at LinkedIn to find leads and to qualify leads. And LinkedIn is an incredible place because, and I urge anyone who is, not driving right now listening to this, if you are in front of a computer or your phone, type your name into Google. Just Google yourself. Okay. And I do this, quite from time to time. And you will notice if you have a LinkedIn profile, one of the top, unless you have an extremely common name like John Smith or something like that, I guarantee you that either the top search or within the top 5 searches results on Google will be your LinkedIn profile. And when someone is searching you, whether, they're going to do business with you or they just came across you and they want to invest with you or whatever it is, they're going to Google you. And if one of those things comes up is LinkedIn, likely, especially if it's at the top, they're going to click that. Now, that's an amazing opportunity. I found this by mistake. Again, I was looking for people and I kept, Googling someone's name and, LinkedIn came up. Let's see if this is the person. Happens to be the same company name, right? The same location. I could qualify that lead. Okay. But I kind of reverse engineered that and saw, well, wait a second. What if someone's Googling me? What are they going to come up with? And I saw people who were in the marketing business, and all this comes back to how and why my progression led to where it is now. I saw people in the digital marketing business, which you know a lot about, who were killing it on LinkedIn and on social media in general. And this was about 3 years ago when LinkedIn changed from becoming what it used to be known as a place to post your profile, your CV, get a job, find a job, post your resume, etc. That totally changed and has developed over the past 3 years into a very active social network with social media content similar to Facebook, Instagram, etc. So again, I found that by mistake. And when I found LinkedIn by mistake, I started noticing people on the main feed, the news feed, which used to just be articles and things like that. Well, I saw videos and I saw people writing these really interesting questions and, post things like that. I decided to, try my own, see maybe I can post some content as well. And I started getting engaged. I started getting contacts with that. So let me take a step back because I kind of panned out into getting ahead of myself. But when I found LinkedIn through Google by mistake and then realized that it's a great place to have a free profile, okay, where you can showcase your business. And likely if someone searches you on Google, we'll click that link and find your business. It's basically a free website where that can showcase your business. You can put in there, PDFs and videos and all kinds of things that talk about, things you've done. If you have videos, if you have been on podcasts, etc., you can showcase all that stuff. You can talk about your business. And most importantly, someone who's looking for you, if you write your profile the right way, it can be, number one, professionally looking, but it can also talk to that person who is looking for you. And I found that to be just incredible.
So where did you start? Did you start posting, or did you first start kind of optimizing your profile? Like where was your very first start? Because I do want to get to the insanity of today.
Yeah, no, and it was a progression. And I'm really starting at the beginning there. haven't really gotten to what the insanity of today consists of, but we will get there, and you will see why and how.
It is amazing. I have to say, the reason I'm interested is I want to figure out how you do it, because it's very, very interesting. It's beyond anything that I can contemplate. So I do want to see underneath the hood, and that's what I'd like to talk to you today. And that's why I think the progression's interesting.
Yeah. And so my background is in teaching, in learning. I studied, in yeshiva for many, many years, and taught many subjects. So I'm a learner. I love to learn. I love to dig deep into things. So when I started LinkedIn, it was really just observing. Okay. And I started, and I still do this a lot. And it's not just, what people call consuming content. It's more really observing and intuitively finding the people who get it, and the people who know what they're doing and are successful at what they're doing, and then follow those people. Not follow in the sense of, just follow blindly like what they're doing, but watch them and learn from what's working and what's not working. And so I didn't start by just posting and doing all that stuff, because people who do that really have no idea what they're doing, and you do all the wrong things. Similar to how I'm on Instagram, for example. I just started an Instagram account this year, right, a few months ago, and I still don't know what I'm doing, right? But, I post there, from time to time. But I'm observing, I'm watching, and I'm learning that platform as well. I still think LinkedIn is way, way, way better right now for organic reach. You talked about this on our meetup. For organic reach, it is incredible. So I'm tapping into that organic reach. So one of the people that I came across and observed early on a few years ago when I started LinkedIn was this guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V. And I really liked his style in terms of how he markets himself. Not necessarily his style in terms of the profanity that comes out of his mouth. I happen to not like that. But, take it with a grain of salt. He actually changed, believe it or not, on LinkedIn. He posts things on LinkedIn that are censored. So if he has, and you go to a talk and on Instagram and YouTube, it's all bleep, saying the 4-letter words and all that kind of stuff. On LinkedIn, he might post the same video, but it's muted. Those lines out or censored out. So he did that consciously, because LinkedIn is a more professional environment. So I found, and I wasn't really interested in other social media platforms at the time, and really didn't get interested until more recently, because I find LinkedIn is a much more professional environment. And it's...
Sorry. But so what was it that Gary was doing?
Many things.
That you reverse engineered that you figured I can do.
So he and many other people that I saw at the time were... Well, it comes down to one of the main philosophies, and he talks a lot about this in his book, right? Jab, 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 right hook, which I learned that originally he wanted to call it jab, 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 like 22 jabs, and then right hook, but the editors told him he couldn't do that. The philosophy is about how can I provide value to my audience? How can I provide value to the people around me and give? That's what the jab is, right? Just give, add value, and then ask, right? Or then do something. It's in there, but it's not first and foremost, which is a very different approach in sales. And so from someone who is in the sales business to an extent, and all of us are in business development, I am looking for more clients. I'm looking for more business, and we all are. You're looking for more investors. There is that sales aspect to it. The approach is totally different, and the approach of two things I saw, which were very, very similar and spoke to me. One is that the approach of adding value, just giving and helping other people, and then they'll come to you. And the second thing, which couples with that, is if you educate people about things they don't know about, then they will look to you as an expert, and they will look to you as the person to turn to when they need help with that thing, whatever that is. So those two approaches speak to my core, right? The teaching, I'm a born, natural teacher. That's what I do. That's what I did for a long time. And the giving, that's also is part of, who I am. I love to give. I ran a nonprofit organization for many years, right? I have a bunch of kids, 6 kids. So it's in my nature, in my part of who I am. So those two things really spoke to me.
So how do you jab on LinkedIn specifically in terms, and you talk about the jab being adding value. So describe different ways about it. How do you do that? What are we talking about in terms of the quality of what you're sending out there?
Absolutely. So there's a few things that I do very consistently, and this progressed over time and continuously learning, right, how to do this better and watching other people do this. One way is to, and I decided this, very early on, after I observed for a long time, to write, post engaging content every single day. Okay. Maybe excluding weekends, but every single day, to be consistent so that people will recognize you, because that's the other main thing about LinkedIn is that brand recognition. People see you and they immediately recognize you and your name and your tagline, which is what you do, that one line that's under your name on LinkedIn. You know how many people come to me and they just know I'm the cost segregation expert, because that's what it says right under my tagline. And they say, I love all of the content that you put out about cost segregation, even though very little of the content I put out is actually about cost segregation. But they make that mental connection of branding that I'm the cost segregation expert because they see my name and they see that line over and over and over and over and over again.
Okay, so let's dive deep on that, if you would, please, because you talked about the idea of engaging content. So what you're linking here is the idea that, I'm going to paraphrase what I think you're doing, the idea of creating pleasant engagement, positive interaction about something. And I suppose it's, what is that something? Doesn't necessarily need to be related to what you're doing, but because it has a positive feel to it, it links somehow with what it is that you do want, or that you do, in your case, cost segregation. So what is the nature of the engaging content? Of what you must be you're not tapping into people's fascination for tax, right? You're tapping into something else. So what is it that you are tapping into there?
There's a lot of things. Okay. And it is it's multifaceted. But I will touch on a few things. One of those things is, like I said, creating consistent content every single day. And that can be about things in your life. And it could be a variety of things. I talk a lot about real estate. I talk a lot about LinkedIn. I talk about creating communities. I talk about, my podcast that I have now. I talk about things that are happening in my business, not necessarily about what I do, but things that a lot of people can relate to. For example, today I posted something about a cold call I once made to $1 billion, corporation, and got chewed out by a CFO, and then turned that into a win, by responding in a positive way that actually ended after, in a sale, right? So that was a reframing. That's something everyone can relate to. Yes, it was about cost segregation, but anyone who's in a sales business or anyone that's in any business can relate to those sides. They've been on the sales call, on a receiving end, or, a calling end. So those type of things, right? Something's happening in your business. Again, that's just an example of something that's happening in your life or in your business that you can share, and people get to know you through that and relate to it.
And this was a written post. This is written.
Correct.
It's not video. You're not doing
video. I use most of the time. I used the LinkedIn, what's called the long form text, which gives you a maximum of 1,300 characters. I don't know why, but it's arbitrary. I use that. Not an article.
It's a post.
It's a post.
It's a straight post.
Straight text post.
And you don't use any graphics. You just sit down and you type. And what inspired you to write that? Were you thinking, oh gosh, I need to write something today? What inspirational thing happened to me? I remember that. Okay, I'm going to write about that. Is that how you do it, or do you think, how do you expect?
So it's usually, so these things, and creating content and creating a content library is what I call it. And I have, Google Sheets, and I save posts, and sometimes I'll repost things that came about. It's usually when things are happening to you. That's when that emotion, and that's when, that comes out, that is most relatable. So when something like that happens to you, sit down with a pad and paper or with a Google Doc or whatever it is you use to write, a notepad, and write something down. You can come back to it later, polish it up, and make it fit, and save it. And you don't necessarily have to use it now or today. You can use it a week from now or a year from now. And so that's an example of things. So when I have an idea, I'll sit down and I'll write something down. But it's usually, for me, it's when things are happening. I was just on a podcast today. I'll take a screenshot and I'll share an image of being on this podcast with Adam Gower right now. I'm actually going to do it right now. So give a smile. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to do just like that. I took a screenshot of just us smiling together. I'm going to share that I was just on a podcast with Adam Gower, and that will get a lot of engagement. And it gives, there's so, like I said, it's multifaceted. There's people see you. Oh, they see, oh, you're someone who appears on podcasts. Oh, with someone else that I know. Oh, okay. This gives a little more credibility to you. But another aspect, I want to go deep into this next thing, which is not about creating content. It's more about the real engagement on LinkedIn happens in the messaging, number one, and in the comments of other people's posts. So that's what I call engaging.
Okay.
That's free. Okay. It's free and you're adding value. And so I actually wrote an article about this. You can, link up to that. It's called How to Add Massive Value to Your Network. Something like that. I don't even remember the name of it, but it's something about how to add massive value to your network. And what it talks about, another thing from Gary Vaynerchuk, we talked about what's called the $80 strategy. And his $80 strategy, something he talked about, he did back in, about 2008, 2009 on Twitter and on Instagram, when he was adding his 2 cents, okay, his thoughts, his thoughtful comment on 90 different posts a day. So he was consuming 90 pieces of content a day, full time, like 6 to 8 hours a day. That's all he was doing, and adding his thoughtful comments. Now, personally, I don't think it's possible to even consume 90 pieces of content a day, because that's what I'm doing right now on this crazy challenge right now with 100 plus people. And I'm trying to, I can't do it. But he was leaving that. And he was saying, add your 2 cents to 90 posts a day. That's $1.80 you're investing every single day.
I
See what comes out of that. So I boiled it down to 18 cents. So I said you could consume 9 pieces of content. Okay. Right. 18 cents is much better. And what it says is you actually add more value to someone else in multiple ways by commenting on other people's posts than actually writing your own posts. So instead of putting out 10 pieces of your own content a day, that might be seen by collectively, let's say 1,000 people, okay, 100 people see each post. You could comment 10 times on 10 other people's posts with a thoughtful comment that might actually spark a conversation. And that might be seen by 10 times or 50 times or 100 times more people, which again, that's your name, your face, your name, your tagline, what you do, that's being seen over and over and over and over again. And it's seen in that positive light where you're adding value, you're helping other people. And it's a really easy way to create trust between other people. Because when you are adding value to others, right? If someone reaches out to me like a cold sales pitch, I'm going to ignore them. But if someone adds a very thoughtful comment to one of my posts, I'm going to pay attention to them.
Absolutely. It's incredible, isn't it? It's interesting you say that, because I get a lot of messages from people that are canned. What are you thinking? Whatever, I just pass by them. When somebody makes a comment on a post, not only do they suddenly exist in my world, whereas before they didn't, but I feel honor bound to respond as well, that they've taken the time out to say something. Very interesting, isn't it? So how does that grow then? What have you found? Just describe the process of how that grows over time.
So I actually, I do this a lot less now, but I did this very, very thoughtfully, very, I would say strategically for a good period of time. This goes back, over a year or two ago, where I was trying to find prospects, okay, people that I wanted to do business with. And it's very easy to find on LinkedIn. because sometimes you'll see people, they'll post about their wins. I just closed on this property for me, right? Everyone's going to be different, but you'll find that prospect that is active on the platform. And again, I use active on the platform, someone who is posting or is engaging, and you can check their activity. You're going to be much more likely to engage with them and have a response from them if they're someone who's active. If they're not active, it's not worth your time. But I will find those people, and there's many ways to find those people, and start to, connect with them with just a friendly message. I'd love to connect, or, hey,
wait. So hang on, that's something different. And now you're saying you're sending a message.
No, it's two things.
Yeah.
Because I'm not just trying to comment on random people, right? I'm combining that with making a connection and starting a conversation offline. Okay. And that's really where this gets to.
Oh.
So I'm going to make that comment, which you said is going to be noticed. Okay. You're going to be noticed. And then I might send them a connection request and say, hey, I just saw this post you read. Congratulations on that. Or I'd love to ask you a follow-up question on that XYZ.
Offline.
No, just on LinkedIn in that chat. Okay. And so that starts a conversation. Whether or not that's going to lead immediately, never, ever, ever, right? Just jump in and say, hey, would you like to jump on a call? No, start a discussion. Great to connect with you. Thank you. Right. Keep that conversation going. Okay. You've opened up.
And you do it in the chat. So somebody writes a post, it's a target, all right, prospect. You write a thoughtful response to it. It might have been, they might have talked about some CEO that they went in to talk to.
Exactly.
Right. You make a comment and then you follow up in that chat as well and kind of start something going.
Right. And if I get a connection request that says in it, hey, Yonah, I just saw your post about the CFO thing. I can relate so much. Love to connect. I won't even think twice to hit that connect button. Yeah. You see that? When someone sends a message with no note, right? Or a note that says, I'd love to add you to my professional network, or right, or something.
I see we know two people in common, so
all right, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to connect with them probably, right? So I'm very particular on that as well. I don't just connect with everyone and anyone, because I want to make sure that it's going to be mutually beneficial.
I knew that it would be fabulous talking to you, because actually, you kind of bring to the surface things that I'm aware of, but not really consciously aware of.
Right.
And go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think a lot of people that are listening can relate to this. Anyone who's been on LinkedIn can relate to all of these things. And because I spend so much time on LinkedIn and have spent so much time over the past few years, I really get a lot. I understand a lot. And I do a lot of things very consciously and strategically. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's drill down. I just know that the time's going to fly ridiculously fast. So I just want to be sure that I really can. So I've got this subheading here that's kind of evolved while we've been talking. I told you I was completely unprepared, other than in my brain, I knew I wanted to kind of extract everything. So this subheading is pro tips, ? There's a few things that you've talked about, commenting on other people's posts, etc. There's one question I have, the one that triggered this that I thought I should ask was, what other tactics are there? And the one that comes to mind is tagging people. So tell me something about your experience of that and other tactics that elicit responses that you find work well.
Sure. And I'm glad you asked, what work well, because some things might work, but they might not work well, and other things, and a lot of it depends. One thing I would say is that learn, right, from your actions, okay, and test things out. See for yourself what works, what doesn't work. And, believe it or not, I've seen a lot of things on the platform in terms of the algorithm itself change over time. What types of posts work more than others? What types of posts, LinkedIn, quote unquote, the algorithm is quote unquote punishing and, not showing. So there are a lot of things that can be said about that. One thing, don't be discouraged. The one thing I would say, if you're posting, be consistent about it. Okay. Whatever you do, be consistent, number one. And number two, I think, like I said before, this is a lot of social media is about creating, it's social, right? Social. So it's about creating communities. And when I mean creating communities, I mean, all right, having a group of like-minded people that can work together and help each other. And so there's kind of this idea of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If you tag someone in a post, right, they're going to come up and show, to comment there. I wouldn't overdo that. And, a friend of mine.
So talk to me about that a little. Yeah.
A friend of mine, posted this, and I've always been of the opinion, I try not to tag a ton of people. I think it's a little bit tactless sometimes. But if there's a reason to do so, go for it.
Different. And
specifically, sometimes if I really want the response, or I really want the opinion of some of these people, or I think they're somewhat involved in this. Right? For example, I will do a post about our conversation and I'll tag you in that post, right? You're going to get about 100 notifications from that, just warning you ahead of time.
Another 100. Right?
Another 100.
With a YW on them.
Right. I have 75 new notifications since the beginning of this, since we started, just to tell you.
And you've got your LinkedIn open, whereas I've closed mine, so I'm not distracted.
I just have the tab. I'm not actually looking at it. I just have the tab on the top that says the number.
All right. So tagging, I get that, because I sometimes, I've seen it work well, where I've felt, okay, this is kind of relevant to me. But then I've seen people put in 100 names, and I just, you know what? I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even.
Exactly.
You know what? It's annoying.
If you included me with 100 other people, let the other 100 comment. Yeah. I'm not going to. If you want my opinion, right? Tag me, or with a handful, 3, 4, or 5. There's no real limit to that, but it has to be tactful. And so one of my friends said, it's like when you, if you have just like you going out to coffee with some friends, right? And this subject comes up, and you want to have a discussion, right? If your post is about the discussion, so tag those few people that you think would be able to provide value to this discussion with a comment. That was her approach. And I think there's a lot of depth to that, and it goes a long way.
And what other tactics then? You've talked about a few, like commenting other people's posts and following up with a chat, and what other methodology you can use that works?
One of the biggest things I would say is to engage on your own post. Okay. So people are commenting, like every comment, respond to every comment, right? And at best, if you can actually respond to some of those comments with questions, don't do it specific, like every single comment, like a question, it gets a little bit annoying, right? Especially, but what that does is, and why this is so important, not just because it creates community, but every single action that happens on a post actually tells the algorithm that this is something that is being noticed and being engaged with. We're going to show this to more people. And so for your post to be seen by more people, which is ultimately one of the main goals, okay, the more eyeballs you get on you and your content, the better. Again, because this all comes back to the branding and people seeing you. Then engage with those comments, every like of those comments, every response, every new comment, all of that elicits. And again, asking a question will elicit another comment again. So again, that's more, and it's just pushing it out. So that's a huge pro tip there that a lot of people ignore, and especially big people who, like people, I don't know, they'll have all their posts automated. And so they're not even checking in on LinkedIn, right? And so the posts are going out there and they have no idea who's even going to be commenting on that. Right? It may come back a day or 2 or 10 later, but in getting the maximum benefit out of the platform and out of those relationships, because again, all of this comes back to, it's all about relationships. For me, it's all about the people. It's not about the content. It's not about the post. It's all about these people. And I have literally made, friends and business acquaintances with well over, 1,000 people. Okay. And I'm talking not just these connections. I have 15,000 connections, but I'm talking real, that I've had conversations with, that I've gone out to coffee with, that I've done business with, well over 1,000. And that comes from creating those relationships. And those relationships don't come from just posting and gone. That's not what it's about. It's about creating those relationships by having a conversation, having a chat, engaging with other people's posts, etc. And a lot of, this can be done for anyone, with anyone, but again, it takes time. Why did I choose to go this route? I think, it was a question right at the beginning. And, how did I get to this point? It just came with the more I put in, the more I got out of it. And so everyone has businesses and everyone has things to run. And so for me, I was able to, over time, gradually focus that a large percentage. I mean, when I say large percentage, I'm talking about, 70 to 90% of my business comes directly from LinkedIn, and at such a volume of incoming business, meaning, and that's what, anyone's in business, you want incoming traffic. Okay. It's much warmer. It's much easier to deal with. It's usually also much more qualified than outgoing traffic. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I prefer that, 10 times out of 10 any day of the week. So gradually, as more incoming traffic, incoming leads, incoming prospects were happening through these relationships and referrals, et cetera, as that goes on, I just kept putting more time in. And so that's really what it comes down to. Everyone's business is going to be different, and everyone's, approach is going to be how much time they can spend, what they want to get out of it. And that really needs to be made clear from the beginning, right? Have the end in mind when you begin to know, what do I really want to get out of this? What is the potential to get out of this? If someone is an actuary, okay, and you're listening to this, there's probably not much you can get out of it, LinkedIn. So, probably better not to spend time on it, or, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is,
So I've got a sequence of questions that are kind of unrelated to each other, but all related to this topic, obviously. So just getting back to content and the nature of content. You talked about posting engaging content. You talked about a meeting you had with a CEO, and it was less about cost segregation. It was more about human relations. So to what extent do you post about cost segregation, and how do you connect? Like, what is the relationship between that and your incoming business? Like, how are these two things correlated?
I think it comes back to that brand awareness. That's really what it's all about. It's about the brand awareness. So it doesn't matter necessarily what you post about, as long as that brand awareness will come back to that. As long as your profile, when people click on that, is very clear what you do and how you can help them, and has a lot of content and a lot of media on there that people can look further into, right? Has on your profile links to your website or links to videos or whatever that you've done, then it's the brand awareness more than anything else. Because and I've done this over time, because I've seen the posts that I do about cost segregation, and I'd say specifically about the subject, talking about, I would say maybe, 10% or less of the content I put out is actually about that. Because frankly, it gets less engagement. And there's only so much you can talk about it. Right.
Yes.
So, but posting about things that people can relate to, and you have that brand awareness that people know you, that says a lot. And
you know what it makes me think of, actually, as we're chatting? It actually, I've been reading a lot of kind of the history of marketing, direct marketing and advertising, like going back 100 plus years, 120, 150 years. It's fascinating. There's actually nothing new. And I'm going to go on to my next question, but I'm going to mention this. You know what it strikes me as? It's like the way that Coca-Cola is advertised. They don't talk about a cool, refreshing drink. What you see in the ads, and I'm not seeing any for ages, but what I remember having seen is lifestyle. It's a connection between something actually unrelated to a sickly sweet drink, and more about living a happy, joyful life. And so you connect these two things, and that's what makes you go out and grab it when you feel thirsty or when you want something, because you relate, because you're connecting that to something enhancing of your life, right? That's the connection. That's kind of what you're describing.
Bingo, exactly. And again, it's about who you are, because people are going to do business with you. And you talked about, the know, like, and trust, triangle. And, I've heard this talk, many times in different ways, but the most important of those three is know. Okay. It's very important to trust people. It's very important to like people. But if no one knows you, then they can't possibly like or trust you.
Okay, so kind of little rapid fire, because I know
Sure.
we've been chatting for
Let's
a
do
while.
it.
But, so how do you target prospects? And I mean that from a mechanical, like really nuts and bolts. Do you use Navigate? Do you just use the search bar? Like, how do you identify people? How do you do it that you want to engage with? Especially people you don't know, but who you want to know, to kind of get into their feed and see what they're chatting about.
Sure. I've tried Navigate. I've tried all these things, right? I've tried a lot of things. The things, and I've done all of them. Okay. And so some things work for me personally, some things don't. The things that work best for me are through my own posts. Meaning if someone comments or likes my post, that is a warm lead. So if I'm not yet connected with them, I will likely go ahead and make connection and just simply thank them for liking or commenting on my post. And that's it. And I'll leave it at that. What's likely to happen is, they might respond. And then that might start a conversation. If that person happens to be, by viewing their profile before I connect with them, I see their potential contact or whatever prospect, then that's a great opportunity right there. Another way is through, like I said, through other people's posts, through through going through the feed or going through the search bar and searching for things specifically. And again, coming across people. The way that I do it is not by connecting with people and just sending a cold pitch. It's by engaging with people and starting with the relationship first. Okay. Again, it always comes back to the jab, 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 right hook methodology of just connect with people, try to add value to them. If that relationship will come, it's so often that, and again, it comes back to this brand thing here, that I'll get a comment, someone say, I love what you're doing, or I enjoy your content, right? By the way, I have a property, and I'm looking to get whatever. I've never posted about cost segregation. They never saw anything about that. Again, it's just about that brand. But when you see it and you're engaging with other people that you're connected with, so their connections see that. Okay, so you're opening yourself. That's why I spend so much time engaging with other people's posts, because their whole world of connections that are my second connections are seeing that, or potentially going to see that. And that's opening them up to notice me. And so that's a lot, spending a lot of time. I'd say the majority of your time on LinkedIn doing that, and doing it, methodically. Don't overdo it. Okay. Don't overkill it, but do it to the point where you're actually adding value.
Okay. So my last question is going to be, how much time do you spend on LinkedIn? But before we get there, how do you keep track of everything? And what I mean by that, when I invite somebody or connect with them, or even if I have a specific comment and I want to connect and I put that in the thing, they might not instantly get back to me. And I've got,
Sure.
like however much traffic. There's no way I even remember. It's like, I hope I remembered that I sent this guy something whenever I sent it. How do you do that? Do you use notifications? Do you have like an Excel spreadsheet? How do you do it?
It's crazy. It's very difficult. I wish I had a better system. I wish there was. And I literally was on, before this call, I was on a call with a representative from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We have our yearly call with them, and just, looking to upgrade stuff. And I told them, I wish there was a CRM or something that integrated with LinkedIn. Now there are that link with Sales Navigator, but that's not what I use. And I don't really get a lot of benefit from Sales Navigator, even though I've used it. I have a really good memory. That's it.
Thank you so very much. That is not in the slightest bit helpful.
But I will say one thing that really helps is that I have a calendar app. Okay. I use Calendly. There's many out there. And I will very often, as soon as a conversation in the chat, escalates to the point where I'd love to, have a conversation with you, or, can I ask you a question? I will drop that. I'll say, let's schedule a Zoom call or a phone call, or whatever, and I'll drop it. Once I have that, then I have them, meaning I have their contact information, and you can, make that. So that's extremely helpful. And I literally do that and have, and I put that on the top of my profile, so anyone can schedule a call with me there.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So now we're at this time. Right, as we get to the end of our spending, let's talk about this. How much time do you spend, and then how much time do you spend? I mean, I'm really like your week. How much time do you spend engaging on LinkedIn, and how much time do you spend engaging in those initial exploratory calls with prospects that have come through LinkedIn?
I'd say at least, and it's hard to give a real number.
I'm glad I'm sitting down.
Yeah, you should be sitting down. But again, remember, this has been a progression of building and funneling the leads and the incoming, leads from that. So I wouldn't recommend this to anyone to jump in like this.
Right.
Again, progress. Start with 10 minutes a day. Start with 20 minutes a day. Start with a half an hour a day, whatever it is, and see what the time you're putting in, see what's coming out from that. As that grows, and if it's working, increase it. If that's your goal, and if your desired end will come, is coming out from the actions you're taking or leading to that. So for me personally, I can literally spend, anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day on LinkedIn.
Engaging, really.
Yeah. And I will have, I have meetings throughout the day. I have phone calls throughout the day. I have, podcasts usually a couple times a week and things like that. Other things I'm doing, I'm in email, but I have LinkedIn open all day long, which means, I'm constantly checking back, in between. I'm not getting sucked in necessarily because I have other things that I'm doing. That's just kind of how I've worked around things. I'm not necessarily time blocked things that I'm doing. I do have consistent that I know in the morning, every single day, I will make a post, whether that's already prepared beforehand or afterwards. And, first thing in the morning, I will spend, a good block of time, because that's when generally a lot of people are spending time there. And so there's a lot more engagement at that period of time.
All right. Let me wrap up with one final question. Did
I shock you with that?
No, it doesn't shock me. It doesn't surprise me in the least, because the amount of velocity that you put out there is, this is what we talked about last week, Yonah. Mm-hmm. It is a trade-off. You decide how you want to play the game. Yeah. And, the most important thing, you've alluded to this, do what works for you.
Exactly.
No point spending 8 hours a day on LinkedIn if it runs against your grain. But if it's natural for you, then to heck yes. Obviously, anything you do, if you do it well, is going to work. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're getting the desired results, then why not?
I was just hired by a fellow. My last question. Who has 6 connections. What advice would you give to me?
Listen, I also had 6 connections at one point, right? we all had 6 connections at one point. I would just apply the same strategies. I would make it a point to grow that connection base, because the more connections that you have, the better. And so you can do that very easily. Ask those connections that you have, follow their posts, see who's commenting on their posts, like their comments, maybe respond to their comments. And that's an easy ground to make that connection. They'll recognize your name. But before you do that, make sure, and the first thing, number 1, is make sure you have a professional looking profile that is clear to the viewer who you are and what you do and how you can help them.
Yonah Weiss, LinkedIn's cost segregation expert. Thanks so very much for joining me today on this podcast. Always an enormous pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure, Adam. Thank you.
That was Yonah Weiss, cost segregation expert at Madison SPECS. And if you are a real estate professional and you really want to dominate the online world in your specific niche of commercial real estate so that you can attract new investors or new prospects, nurture them and convert them into being active, repeat investors, then you are in the right place. Just go to GowerCrowd.com, subscribe to my newsletter, discover this world of digital marketing. It is absolutely incredible, revolutionary for the commercial real estate industry. Sign up there at GowerCrowd.com, learn more about it, and let me know if you have any questions, all right? You can just reply to any of those newsletters. Your email will come directly to me. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. And Yonah Weiss, thanks so much. You are such a superstar over there at Madison SPECS. I've learned so much from you today about LinkedIn and how to manage LinkedIn and all your super secrets for how to do that so well. And really, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you and to spend time with you. That's all for this episode. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, stay well. And for now, this is Dr. Adam Gower signing off.